Good morning, everyone. My name is Garrett Sheehan. I'm President and CEO of the Greater New Haven Chamber of Commerce. We thank you for joining us for this year's 2020 Big Connect, presented by Comcast Business in a virtual format. I want to thank all of our investors who support the Chamber throughout the year and allow us to put on not only this programming, but the events that you've seen throughout the year, the webinars, all the resources that we've been able to provide to small business as we've navigated through the pandemic. Especially Comcast Business, who is our presenting sponsor again this year for the Big Connect. Usually we're in person with Comcast Business. They have that great big booth on our expo floor, but we're very happy to be joined by Paul Savas, Vice President of the Western New England region for Comcast Business. Paul, good morning.
Good morning, Garrett. We are once again at Comcast Business thrilled to be the presenting sponsor of the Big Connect. It's always a highlight of our year to make so many great connections with chamber members and also all of our existing customers. So for those of you that are on the meeting today, that our existing customers are soon to be, thank you very much, and we very much appreciate your business. 2020 has been an incredible challenge for all of us, I'm sure, and the resiliency and the flexibility of the chamber to be able to still hold the Big Connect in such an interesting year is absolutely amazing. So Garrett, to you and your entire staff, to be able to hold such a worthwhile event, to bring together those connections in the community, to foster increased business and increased connections, because at a time like this, when we've been so disconnected, efforts of yours through the chamber to keep us all connected for not only business, but personal and mental health reasons, because we are such a wonderful and thriving business community in the Greater New Haven Chamber. It's a testament to what a great organization it is. And once again, we're thrilled to be the presenting sponsor, to be able to see members and be able to talk about the latest in technology as what we have to offer for keeping your businesses all connected and innovative and inspiring sorts of ways to make sure that your business continue to thrive in this environment. So Garrett, it's a pleasure once again at Comcast Business to be here with you, and thanks for the opportunity.
Thanks, Paul, and I'm pleased to let everyone know that this entire expo is run on Comcast Business. We have Comcast Business running through the chamber office, and could not be happier with the speeds. It lets all the videos play fine. And it's been a great experience, and we always love working with you and your team. Thanks, Paul.
Thanks, Garrett.
All right, well, we are just getting underway. We're going to have our first speaker at 9 a.m. this morning. Much more to come. I do want to thank the rest of our sponsors who are with us, who have supported this big event. And again, thank you to Comcast Business as our presenting sponsor. We have a Zoom Lounge networking room that will be running all day. It's sponsored by the energy efficiency programs at UI and Southern Connecticut Gas, part of the Avangrid family. You can go there, you can read about our expo sponsors. We're gonna have some of the speakers are gonna navigate over there, and we'll also have dedicated networking times for you to go over and have some time to meet up with colleagues, meet up with people that you don't know. So we're gonna have some dedicated networking times that will all be taking place in our Zoom Lounge networking room, again, presented by the energy efficiency programs at UI and Southern Connecticut Gas. I want to take a moment to thank all of our sponsors for today: Marrakesh, Bloom Shapiro, KeyBank, and Foxwoods Resort Casino. Also, all of our media sponsors: Connecticut Public, La Voz Hispana, Aligning, New Haven Biz, RJ Media Group, IKEA, Story Reel Studios, the Inner City News, Comcast Business, New Haven Register, and Hearst Connecticut Media Group. And also our day sponsor, Connecticut. Let's watch a video from them now.
We believe in the power of people to do what it takes, to stand strong, to meet challenges head on. At Connecticut, we help our members do just that. We're here when they need an ally, clearing paths so they can see their doctors or get their medicine safely at home. And since Connecticut is our home too, we see the power in its people every day. Connecticut, powered by people for a healthier you.
And thank you to Connecticut, who is sponsoring our day today here at the Big Connect. We also have a very special presentation for you right now to get things started for the morning. I want to welcome in Lenady Janot, who's going to start us off with God Bless America. Lenady.
God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans, wide would foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home.
Wow, that was really incredible. Thank you, Lenady, for that rendition of God Bless America, and a great way to start us off this morning for the Big Connect. We do have a few videos now that we're going to run, and some of our exhibitors who are with us today, also some of our other sponsors, we want to give them a big thank you. Again, we're going to get started at 9 o'clock. We have Frank Sesno is going to kick us off from a speaker standpoint. If you're joining for Start with Art, that's going to jump off at 8:50 a.m. and then we'll get right into Frank after that. And we also have our Zoom networking room is available. It's on Zoom. There's a link inside of the Whova platform where you can join us there. If you have any questions, reach out to the chamber. We'll make sure we get you to the right place. We're going to try to have some of our speakers navigate over to the Zoom room so you can have some extra conversation with them after they wrap up talking. And make sure you check out all of our exhibitor booths here in the virtual exhibitor hall. It's all right there on the Whova app. And we really do appreciate you joining us here for this virtual Big Connect. We'll play a few videos and then we'll be back with Start with Art at 8:50 a.m. And we'll get the video up in just a moment. And again, thank you for joining us here at the Big Connect virtual and 4 days. Normally 1 day. Today we're doing it over 4 days. Again, thank you to Comcast Business, our presenting sponsor for the Big Connect, and Connecticut, our sponsor of the day today.
Protect the environment and help your local economy by using certified and environmentally validated biodiesel from American Green Fuels. Biodiesel is a renewable energy source made from recycled waste products, such as used cooking oil, which is converted into biodiesel at American Green Fuels and then blended into your heating oil. Biodiesel burns cleaner even in your current oil burner, so ask your oil retailer for biodiesel produced by American Green Fuels. You are what you heat.
At AMS Practice Management, we're recruiters committed to your success. We're not just a vendor, we're your partner. Your team is foundational to your success, and we understand that finding the right candidate is about more than keywords on a resume, which is why we go beyond job boards and algorithms. It's about cultural fit, personality, experience, and so much more. You need someone who understands the vision. We're committed to providing you excellent customer service through clear communication and value-added information throughout the whole recruiting process. What challenging position can we help you fill?
So you're a small business, or a big one. You were thriving. But then, time to think, plan, pivot. How do you bounce back? You don't. You bounce forward with serious and reliable internet, powered by the largest gig speed network in America. But is it secure? Sure, it's secure. And even if the power goes down, your connection doesn't.
So how do I do this?
You don't do this. We do this together. Bounce forward with Comcast Business.
The door to a car you've been saving for. The door to a personal loan that feels genuinely personal. The door to a bedroom for each of your teenagers. The door to a new employee who's also your neighbor. And the door to a happy and full life for you and everyone you know. This year, KeyBank has already opened over 170,000 doors, helping people get from where they were to where they wanted to be. KeyBank opens doors.
Could the underground water, sewer, and septic lines leading to your home be a ticking time bomb? If pipe damage occurs, you'll not only be in a mess, but you could end up paying thousands of dollars in repair bills. Don't wait until it's too late. Pipe Safe to the Rescue is here for you 24/7. The Regional Water Authority's trusted Pipe Safe protection program provides peace of mind for homeowners. For pennies a day, enroll in the RWA's Pipe Safe plans at pipe-safe.com or call 203-562-4020.
And thank you again to all of our sponsors. If you're just joining us, we're getting ready for a start with art, which is going to start at 8:50 a.m. And right after that, we will have Frank Sesno kicking us off, our keynote speaker for this morning here at the Big Connect, presented by Comcast Business. Few announcements I want to let people know about. First, we do have a raffle that is going on. You need to use your passport. It's part of the app that is on the Whova app. If you have any trouble with it, what you're going to use with that passport is stop by all of our exhibitor booths, make sure you get it validated, and then you'll be entered in for a prize. Thanks to Foxwoods Resort Casino, a one-night room giveaway, dinner, plus free passes at Monza Race Karting. So that's the race cart. So that's a great prize. Again, you use the passport. It's in the Whova app. Easiest to use on the mobile app, but also can be accessed from the web portal. If you have any issues with it, just let us know. But you go by going to each exhibitor booth, getting that checked off, and then you will be entered to win the Foxwoods prize giveaway. I do just want to run down our speakers for today. We've got a great lineup all day, all 4 days, I should say, for this event. But just a little while, we'll be hearing from Frank Sesno. Then our panel discussion this morning, positive pivots and best practices in the pandemic. We have Dale Krupp, Ramon Peralta, and Lauren Tagliatella as part of that panel. Then we're going to be talking at 11 a.m. about access to capital and other support for your business, presented by KeyBank. Allison Standish-Plimpton, one of our board members, and also a senior vice president with KeyBank, and then Richard Evans, vice president with the Community Investment Corporation, will be joining us. At noon, we'll hear from Lori Santos. She's a professor at Yale and the Science of Well-Being. And then at 12:30, Superhero's Guide to Building Your Brand and Dominating Your Market During and After a Pandemic, Hearst Media Group, and that's Paolo Romanacci. And we've heard from Paolo before. He's got great tips on how to improve your digital marketing. And then this afternoon, we'll round things out at 1:30, Optimism and Opportunity, the new roadmap to success from Bloom Shapiro. Some tips and tricks for you as you are navigating your business through these very difficult times. And as we were saying, we have full days. So on Tuesday, we'll be back here again. We're going to kick that off with Toby Corey and Get Virtual, how you take your business online through many different platforms. A lot of great speakers throughout the day, including our Women's Power panel on Tuesday. And then on Wednesday, we get things started with the Nonprofit Awards Breakfast. And then also Bill Strickland will be our keynote speaker on Wednesday. And on Thursday, really excited, we have Ross Dotat. Ross is a op-ed columnist with the New York Times, and he lives right here in New Haven. He's going to give us some perspectives on the election as well. So we have a great lineup, 4 days of great speakers throughout. Check out all of the exhibitors in our exhibit hall. And we're excited now this morning to turn to something we're going to carry on throughout all 4 days as well, and that's called Start with Art. New Haven region is so dependent upon the arts. It's such a part of what we do. And here at the Chamber, we're excited that we can highlight that. So each day of the 2020 Expo will incorporate a Start with Art segment. This is our way of honoring what is unique, diverse, and treasured in Greater New Haven. We'll highlight slices, pizza pun intended there, of New Haven to the broader community. Viewers of our virtual business expo will not only hear from national and regional speakers, but also visit the virtual booths and network in the Zoom lounge, as we've been saying, but also learn about New Haven's vibrant arts and culture that's essential to the wider range of the region's economy. This year's virtual expo is an opportunity to share what is good, real, and unique about New Haven with members of the business community and guests. And we are very pleased to start with Art with Tony Falcone. And what we're titling his segment here this morning is The Accidental Artist. I'll just say about Tony, he helps us out so much at the Chamber. If you've been to the Chamber boardroom, you'll see the wonderful pictures on the wall. Those are all illustrations by Tony. So let's get right to it. Start with Art.
I'm Dr. William Terry Brown, Chief Executive Officer for Gateway Community College, and it is my pleasure to welcome Mr. Tony Falcone, the accidental artist, to Gateway's campus. We're actually in the middle of our art gallery where his work has been on exhibition since November of 2019, and unfortunately we had to close it down prematurely in April because of the pandemic. And so to actually have you here and meet you is really a real treat. So welcome to Gateway Community College.
Well, that's so nice. Thank you so much, Dr. Brown.
So my understanding is that this exhibition really celebrates your 46 years as a professional artist, and particularly here in the New Haven area. But I've heard you called, the accidental artist.
Right.
How did you get to be the accidental artist? What made it accidental?
It truly was accidental. I was at the time, going back into the 70s, a New Haven fireman. And I became a fireman because my dad had been a fireman. I was going to college, but then was going to get married, needed some full-time income. Turns out that I'm doing a doodle one day, and this friend of mine who said, "That's really good, you're an artist." I said, "No, I'm a fireman." He goes, "Let's do a mural." And the classic line was, "What's a mural?" I had never painted. He says, "We'll paint on a wall." So we did this big painting of an ice cream cone, 20 foot high on a handball court. It became a hit. Everybody loved it. And I had so much fun, I decided I have to do this all the time. So we started working together, and I found out that I had talent that I never knew I had. And I ended up never taking an art lesson, and 46 years later, I'm the accidental artist. I just happened to be found doing a doodle.
You kind of started off in a big way. I'm curious, when you walk past the gallery, you can't help but notice these two octagonal paintings. Can you tell me what they're all about and what led you to create them?
Thank you. I'd be happy to. So I left the fire department and I opened a studio in Prospect, Connecticut, and the first two paintings I did with my partner Dan were these two paintings. New Leaf is the lily pads, and New Earth is the one of the aerial view of the Earth. New Leaf is my answer to life in the vast land. Who knows how big the universe is, but when I think about the environment and I think about how sometimes we forget how fragile things are, I thought New Leaf would present life in a little bubble. There's cities in each of these bubbles, but I love the fact that it's sort of a surprise. You see it as a large painting of lily pads, and as you walk closer, you get to see that there's something inside the water droplets. And then New Earth, its companion, is a whole different view. Instead of the microcosm, this is the macrocosm. As you get back, you notice that there's something here besides just a pretty view of the Earth. It's actually featuring a work of monumental landscape art. And there's all different kinds of solar power and water power, wind power. It's saying that the Earth was a beautiful garden at one point. We polluted it, but we fixed it. And we planned for environmentalism and we planned for overpopulation, so that to illustrate that it didn't happen by accident, the larger tree forms are actually the shape of a man and a woman, and they have the dome cities on each of their hearts, and they're suggesting as they reach other cities, and maybe this could go right across a desolate region of our own country or around the world. And I just wanted to say that that's my vision for saving the planet. We have to plan this stuff. We have to think about the environment as being very important.
And I know that the perspective is very important in art and to an artist. I'm struck by several of your works of the New Haven area and things here and around. I was shocked when I saw that you had painted the huge horse racing mural on the back of Sports Haven. I've probably driven past it 100 times, and now I get to meet the artist. But one here in the gallery that really fascinated me was your painting. I guess it's an aerial perspective of the New Haven Green. Mm-hmm. Where did that come from, and why that painting? Why that perspective?
Okay, thank you for asking. That's one of my favorite subjects is New Haven. Believe it or not, I was born here, and the thing about New Haven is I love it being a big town, and I love it having all kinds of arts and culture and theaters and events. It's a very special place, and a long time ago, I read these revelations in the Bible about there will be a new heaven and a new earth. So I decided to title this one New Heaven because it sounded optimistic to me that you come here in the bubble over the city, and I just think that it represents my hope that New Haven always stays an exciting, vibrant, culturally rich place, and also a safe place for people to come and feel that they're in the right town when they come here.
So looking to the future, what is your vision for the artistic work that you'd like to do?
And it always comes back to the accidental artist approach. I'll tell you a funny story. I get these awesome ideas for marketing, and I do my letters and I follow up whatever with phone calls and things and try to get appointments. It's always a serendipity. It always happens that wonderful things, just a bat phone rings and somebody wants some artwork. And it leads to something really terrific. So my vision for the future is that I'm looking to just keep expressing my work and creating for a wider audience. I'd like to hopefully see my artwork be appreciated and be used in a way to help things with the environment, because I feel that the environment is really being overlooked and is important. So if my art can help inspire people to save this planet and to have a healthier environment for our children, for their future, that's a big goal of mine, and just to be able to keep creating.
Well, again, I am thoroughly impressed, not only with the pieces that I've seen here, but just the breadth of skill and talent. We're talking pieces that are, 8-9 feet high, a mural that is several stories high, portraits of President Obama, and paintings of Star Wars characters. Just the range of what you do truly is remarkable, and we're happy and thankful that you shared your work with us here at the college.
Oh, thank you so much. That means a lot to me. I also want to thank Gateway Community College for being receptive to having this show here, and they've done everything to help us have a really terrific audience and show. I should mention also the Greater New Haven Chamber of Commerce. So I also want to make special thank you to Mary Ellen Cody of Gateway, to Ray Andrewson, who is putting the Art Expo together for the Chamber of Commerce. I'd like to thank him and all his staff. I also want to make special mention to one of the most important people in my life, and that is Judy Andrews, who's my partner in life and in business. She's just the most amazing person I've ever met, and she is my guiding light. So I just wanted to give a shout out to her. I'd also like to invite the public to look at my work at my website at www.falconeartstudio.com. If anyone's interested in some kind of work that they'd like to have done, they could call me. My phone number is 203-671-1256. And thank you so much, Dr. Brown, for taking the time to do this interview and for being so helpful. And I really appreciate your questions.
Truly my pleasure. Thank you for sharing your talent and your vision and your art with all of us.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Well, thank you to both Terry and Tony. Great to see all of Tony's work, and just incredible. And that's Start With Art, and we'll start with that every morning at 8:50 a.m. Now I'd like to welcome Heather Latorre, who's the President and CEO of Marrakesh and our sponsor of our speaker this morning. Heather, good morning, and thank you so much for joining us. And thanks for bringing Frank here with us this morning.
Good morning, Garrett. Thank you. I am honored to be invited to help kick off this huge event by introducing our opening keynote speaker, Frank Sesno. The last time Frank addressed our group, our Greater New Haven Chamber of Commerce group, it was at the Omni Hotel in 2017, and about 500 of us were gathered together. I miss those days. We were all mesmerized by his talk. Most of the group stayed after to meet Frank personally and have our book signed. Frank is special to me and to Marrakesh because of his sister, Laura. Over 60 years ago, Laura was born with Down syndrome and developmental disabilities. But their mom, Jean Wright, was not a woe is me type of person. She was a pioneer, and nothing was getting in her daughter's way to living a happy, healthy, meaningful, and independent life that she chooses, just like everybody else. We are honored that Laura and her family selected and continued to trust Marrakesh to support her in living her life with quality and self-sufficiency. Frank is typically at the Oakdale with us in November for our largest annual fundraiser. This year, we changed it up to a virtual month of giving with a silent auction and matching donation challenges. Please check us out on your Big Connect app to find our video, which shows our large human service organization pivoting our operations to maintain the physical and fiscal health and happiness of our entire Marrakesh family. And stop by our virtual exhibitor booth for more information. I wanted to give you a brief glimpse into the accomplishments of Frank Sesno. He's the Director of Strategic Initiatives at George Washington University's School of Media and Public Affairs. He's an Emmy Award winning journalist and the creator of Planet Forward. And he also hosts the podcast Healthy You Surviving a Pandemic. Frank teaches classes on environmental reporting, ethics in journalism, documentary, and the art of the interview. Frank has, he's also the author of Ask More, The Power of Questions to Open Doors, Uncover Solutions, and Spark Change. Frank has interviewed 5 US presidents and spent 21 years at CNN, where he serves as White House correspondent, anchor, Sunday talk show host, and a Washington bureau chief. But most of all, Frank Sesno happens to be a pretty amazing person, educator, friend, colleague, and family man, and I'm honored to introduce you to him. Thank you. You will enjoy. And Frank, you are on.
Thank you very much, Heather. I so appreciate it. And I hope you all can hear me now. If not, somebody should scream at me, but I assume I'm with you. I want to start by thanking Heather and the New Haven Greater New Haven Chamber of Commerce. First to Heather and Marrakesh. Let me say, Heather is an unbelievable leader. The people who work at Marrakesh, working with people with developmental disabilities across the state of Connecticut, are, in my humble opinion, heroes. They come into work, especially now amid COVID, every day, committed to helping people make the most out of their lives and contribute to their communities, whether it's in the New Haven area or anywhere across the state, in the most amazing, creative, positive ways possible. So Heather, here's to you. And given that this is a giving month, as you know, the Sesno family proudly supports Marrakesh. We will continue to do that. And I would encourage everyone out there to do that, because it is just an amazing place offering amazing opportunities to people from all walks of life. To the Chamber of Commerce, I'm thrilled to be back with you. Now, unfortunately, I'm coming to you from my home here in Washington, D.C. And as I like to say, I'm from Washington, but don't blame me. I'd much rather be in Connecticut, near you, near my sister, back toward my roots, because I grew up in Connecticut, of course, K through 12 in the great Nutmeg State. But unfortunately, COVID keeps us apart. I hope that will change, and I hope that we will be able to be together in the future. I'm going to talk to you today about resilience, community, diversity, creativity, the weird world we're in. But I think, given that it's kind of morning time, and I think some of you will be, I hope, joining me later for some conversation and questions, but given that it's morning time, I think it's appropriate. And I'd like to toast everybody. I have my orange juice here. And so, you know, morning breakfast toast. Here's to Connecticut and the Chamber and businesses and prosperity and all of us coming out of our COVID caves soon enough. Now, what do you notice about this glass? Is it half full or half empty? I've had this sort of philosophical kind of self-realization lately as I think about half full and half empty glasses, as I think about what I've done in my life as a journalist and all I've seen, the stories I've done, the stories I've covered, the people I've interviewed. So I now have decided, and I dedicate my talk this morning along these lines. I think of myself as a glass half empty optimist. So the glass is half empty. I'm pretty good at seeing that. Journalists are good at that, right? I mean, it's the plane that crashes, not the plane that lands safely. That's always the story. And as we look at politics, we surely know that the focus is mostly on the controversy and the negative. But I'm optimistic nonetheless. And one of the reasons that I'm optimistic fundamentally is also because of all I've seen. And the amazing people, and they start in groups like this, in chambers of commerces around the country, in communities, in towns and cities, who are dedicated to one another, to places like Marrakesh, to neighbors, and to their own well-being, prosperity, equity, participation in a wider, larger, and more diverse community. That's what benefits everybody. And that's the beauty, really, of the American dream, which I've also seen and covered a lot of. So I'm going to talk about some of that. Now, of course, when you talk about that, you also have to talk about the half empty part. So I may start with that. I came to Washington. I grew up in Connecticut, as I said, went to school in Vermont, and then came down to Washington when Jimmy Carter was president. I was 3, that's okay. But I came down here, and one of the first things I covered was a huge strike by, and some of you may remember this, American farmers. And farmers drove their tractors to Washington. They filled them all, and there was all kinds of upheaval there. I covered Ronald Reagan. That was, in fact, my first White House assignment. And during Reagan's term, we had the Challenger disaster. We had the Marine barracks bombing in Beirut. Terrible, terrible things and challenges. We had, very, very serious Cold War confrontations. But then we also had, Gorbachev and Reagan and, Mr. Gorbachev tear down this wall, and nobody would have thought that was possible. I was here through the Bush presidencies and all the rest. I stood on the West Front when Barack Obama was sworn in January of 2009, seeing the first African American in history putting a hand on the Bible, raising his right hand and taking the oath of the presidency in the shadow of the very same building where some of the most oppressive policies in American history were articulated, pursued, and sometimes voted on. Also where we stood up for freedom and equity and civil rights. And I think, my God, what a sweep of experience that we have had. I was covering the White House or at CNN when we had the impeachment of Bill Clinton and Bush v. Gore and 9/11. So think of what we've been through. And so when we think about these words, resilience, community, diversity, and creativity, we draw on these things, even in the worst of times, for our strength. And here's where we are today. Glass half empty time, okay? COVID. We've got this new surge. We have word today that there's a second vaccine that's nearly 95% effective potentially. So we know that science is rallying, okay? There's the optimism. Glass half empty is we have more people getting sick, more people dying, and an absence of federal leadership at a critical time in the trajectory of this terrible virus. The economic challenges this has all produced, and I don't need to tell this group because here you are, businesses on the front lines, whether you're restaurants or whether you're offices or whether you're delivery services or whether you're providing any kind of educational service. We've been hammered by this, and we will continue to be hammered by this for a while. I work at the George Washington University. We are shut now for in-person classes for the second semester. It's taken a terrible economic toll, a terrible emotional and professional toll, and a terrible learning toll. My heart goes out to everyone who's trying to raise children, educate children, because in this environment, it is so, so challenging. The economic challenges, as I mentioned, ripple through families and businesses. It's incredible. The political divisions that we're seeing, okay? Like I said, I came to this town, Washington, a long time ago. Don't blame me. And I have seen all kinds of things, never anything like this. The harshness, the divisiveness, the otherness, the effort to kind of polarize is really shocking and in many ways quite frightening. And we're going to have to draw on deep, deep resources within us as a society and as a culture to get over this. The racial reckoning that we are experiencing following the George Floyd and other very public and horrific killings has really challenged us fundamentally to understand who we are, where we came from, what we still have as a legacy surrounding that, what still needs to be done, and how we become not just benign, but anti-racists. How do we stand up to this individually, as families, as communities, as businesses? And there's some remarkable stuff being done. Glass half empty, but also cause for hope and optimism. The media, my business. I wrote this, now it seems, maybe I was writing to the managers of Jurassic Park when I did it, when I was at CNN some years ago, but I wrote a memo to the reporters in the Washington Bureau. And I said, when you're doing a live shot, when you're live on television, please try to avoid 2 words, I think. Because I said, the audience doesn't really care what you think. The audience cares what you've seen, what you've heard, what you can document, what you have witnessed. That's what reporters should do. Well, look at the media landscape now, and there's a ton of opinion. There's so much commentary. There's so much attitude. And in fact, many news organizations have taken sides, both reflecting and amplifying the divisions that we experience all the time. And I don't know that that genie is going back into the bottle. We're not going back. And I said this 3 years ago, I think, when I was up speaking with you, we're not going back to a Walter Cronkite world anytime. It's not going to happen. Bring in social media and how easy it is on social media for people to attack, criticize, spread disinformation, false information, frighten. We have deep fakes where you can make these videos that look like the real thing. And look what they've done to us. And whether they're coming from somebody sitting in the basement, as we've joked about in the past, or from Russia or Iran or North Korea or somebody in Macedonia who just wants clicks and to make money, it doesn't matter, because fear sells, conspiracies take root, and this has the effect of dividing us. And so we're going to have to be really vigilant about that. We've got a new program at GW. We were given some funding about a year and some ago by the Knight Foundation. We've created an Institute for Data Democracy and Politics, and we're doing research into where this stuff comes from, what effect it has, what can be done to counter it. Again, the glass is half empty, but I'm very optimistic that great minds and very thoughtful, caring people are focusing on this at our level and many, many, many other levels to do something powerful about it. The question this all leaves us with, it's a big one, and I think Heather mentioned my work with Planet Forward, which focuses on climate change and sustainability and efforts to create a world in which the ideas, the innovations, the inventions can help us move the planet forward. One of the big challenges we've got is sort of fact versus fantasy, and science versus what? Made up stuff, science versus conspiracy, science versus whatever you want it to be. We're going to have a really serious and important challenge when these vaccines come out, because as an example, we as we know, there's an anti-vax movement. And again, a colleague of mine has studied that and found, for example, that about 40% of the anti-vaccination disinformation over a period of time has come from Russia via the internet and social media. Why? Not to move policy, not to sell or not sell vaccines, but simply to sow chaos and discord and disagreement. So this is what the glass half empty looks like. This is what we're up against. Divisive politics, major challenges from COVID, the economy, major issues with disinformation, a media environment that just is noise a lot of time and at times, and politicians who can both capitalize on this and suffer from it. Let me go to the optimism now, because that's really where I want to focus. And I mentioned the 4 words that I kind of have been kept in mind throughout all of this: community, resilience, diversity, and creativity. Community, okay. The most wonderful job I had actually was when I was a local reporter, and I was reporting on small businesses and my neighbors and my community. And people care about that. They're less likely to take hard sides. They're less likely to engage in conspiracy theories. They're less likely to just pile on when they know you as a neighbor. It doesn't mean there's not going to be debate. It doesn't mean that you're not going to have a town meeting or a school board meeting and people aren't, screaming and yelling. That's the nature of things. But when you're in a community and when you can make clear what the tangible benefits and problems are, things become real. I think that I think about, we had a story when I was working in this community about renovating the town hall so it could be accessible to all. So people with handicaps and disabilities could get through it. These were in the earlier days of the Americans with Disability Act and all that kind of thing. And there were people who pushed back on it. And the town manager spoke publicly and talked about his own disabled child and how his disabled child would be able to access this building. And it brought people around, because suddenly there was what we call in journalism a trusted source. Town manager was everybody's neighbor. He was telling a story about his own life and his own child, and making something that seemed intangible very real, because it was the building everybody knew on Main Street that needed money, but was going to be accessible not just for his child, but for anyone who was in a wheelchair or anyone who confronted disability. I think about COVID. This announcement today from this next pharmaceutical company following Pfizer last week, that they've developed a vaccine. It still needs to move more through the clinical phases, that will be way past what Tony Fauci said a successful vaccine would be. He said he had talked about a 75% effective vaccine. These are 90 and 95% effective vaccines, and they are turned in record time. Never before has a vaccine certainly to a pandemic that afflicts the globe been turned so quickly. What are we capable of doing? I work with my students in my Planet Forward project, and many students, so many young people are so concerned about climate change and about the challenges to the environment, about a world they see in peril. And I speak to them, yes, all of that is true, but sometimes I come into class and I hold up it's just a glass of water, but I say, what if I came in and I held this clear liquid, and I told you that this clear liquid could help you defy gravity or move at 100 miles an hour? Okay, yes, it's a fossil fuel. Yes, it's gasoline, but imagine the miracle that has done. Now think about the solar panels that are on the roof or out in the solar farm. Think about nuclear power and what that can do. Look what human beings are capable of. I got into the environmental side of the work that I do years ago when I was at CNN, and I did a documentary on energy and the environment, and I literally traveled the world. I went out to the deep waters of the Gulf. I went to the sugarcane fields of Brazil. I went to the oil sands of Canada. I went to the labs of General Motors, where they were building hydrogen fuel cell vehicles. And I said, my God, this is incredible what humans are capable of. I was talking to this old boy on this drill rig out in the Gulf, and he's from Louisiana and he'd been in the energy business all his life. And he said, if you had told me 5 years ago that we could drill 7 miles down and sideways and extract this natural gas, I would have told you were crazy. In 5 years, that industry had transformed. And as we talk now about cleaner technologies, as we talk about renewable energy, as we talk about all the things that we're capable of doing, that's where optimism comes from. I think about the people who don't get much focus in the news, who have committed themselves to try to bring sides together in our politics. That's a tough business right now. And some of the lawmakers in the state of Connecticut, and the ones you know personally, you probably like, even if you disagree with them, at least for the most part, because they're most of them committed to serving the public. One of my concerns, and one of the things I'd like to see done a little bit better, and I'm trying to do this in some of the work that I'm doing as well, is how about focusing on people who are actually contributing in public service? And by the way, that can be political leaders. It can also be corporate leaders, because there's so many people who are doing that. Again, this is something you know through your work with the chamber and the work that Garrett does and others. I mean, there's incredible energy and philanthropy and community commitment, and now very, very clearly stated commitment to diversity and equity and expanding that. So that's something that gives me cause for some hope and some optimism. I will tell you a story of a friend of mine. I went to college with him. He went off to medical school. I interviewed him recently for the podcast that I'm now doing called Surviving a Pandemic. His name is John Durham. He goes by Bull, so we call him Bull Durham. He comes from Maine. He's got a wonderful, thick, old Maine accent. I remember years ago when I went up visiting him when we were in college, going out and lobstering together. But Bull went to medical school and became an orthopedic surgeon. He did a fellowship in India. He came back to this country, and he's now working on the Navajo reservation in Arizona. He goes to Haiti every year for several weeks to work with Haitians. He started doing this after the earthquake. He ended up adopting a child there, a child who he discovered had been orphaned and needed parenting. And she is now growing up in Flagstaff, Arizona, which is where he lives. There are challenges there, but they are making an incredible contribution to a life. This is one person doing one thing, but look at the impact that he is having. And I would love to see us focus some more on people who are making these kinds of contributions in communities. And so many of them right there in New Haven who are doing this, who are resilient, who are creative in how they come at a problem or a community or their own cash flow, and who celebrate and engage the diversity that is New Haven with all of the opportunities and challenges that suggests. I mentioned to you that I do this sustainability class, the sustainability project through Planet Forward. I teach a class around that as well. I think Heather mentioned that. And the very searing experience that I had recently, we were looking at a new report that was talking about accelerating climate change and some of the real challenges and how far behind we are in dealing with a lot of that. And the conversation took off in class amongst these students about what this means. And several of the students said, because of this problem, they had made the decision not to have children. Now, these are 18, 19, 20, 21-year-olds. So there's room for change over time. But I've had similar conversations with my daughter, who really, and she's, been out of college for a while now. Should she bring a child into the world when the world is in such peril? And so we have conversations. And I say, now, wait a minute. What if people had said this in 1943 when the world was engulfed in war? Or in 1933 when the world was swept by depression? What if people said this in the midst of slavery, when people were enslaved? What if we said this during the Black Death that wiped out a quarter of the world's population? Human beings don't give up. Human beings take all the crap that we throw at ourselves and we double down and we think around it and we try to invent our way out of it, right? Back in the 70s, the Hudson River stank and Los Angeles was a smog pit. Those problems have not gone away, but they're a lot better. We can fix these things. And so I think this is the spirit that we need to really reach back in. We have been through, I started by talking about this and I'll come back to it again, the most unbelievable political cycle I have ever seen. I have covered presidents really since Jimmy Carter. And you may love Donald Trump or you may hate him, but I will say this, I have not seen a president be as harsh and as difficult and as divisive in his rhetoric and otherize others. And okay, fair enough, the other side does that too. We somehow are going to need to find a way as a culture, as a society, to step back, to take a breath, and to find ways that for all our difference and diversity, we can agree to disagree, or we can disagree in modestly agreeable ways. And the president isn't alone on this. We've lost the sense of civility in our Congress here in Washington. We've got so much money and so many people in this process that it's just, hurling insults. The media is the great amplifier out there. So we've got to find a way to step back. So here's another place where I find hope. I talked to you about my college students, and that is young people. There is more power and there's more commitment than we've seen. One of the good news coming out of a very divisive election is that more people voted, and lots of young people did that too. I've had the opportunity to interview some of these amazing young people. I've had the opportunity to teach them, but I've also had the opportunity to interview them because they've got so much reach. There's a young man by the name of David Hogg. David Hogg is a survivor of Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School. He came to George Washington University a little while ago, and the students at GW who had invited him asked me if I would do a sort of fireside chat interview with this young man. And I said, well, don't you really want someone, a peer? I didn't want me. No, we want you to do it. I said, okay, fine. I'm honored, and I will do that. And this young man, who's unbelievably poised, told the story. His sister was in school that day. He was in school that day, of the school shooter and what that was like. But then he spoke about how he went about organizing students and using social media to connect them and bringing 1 million people together. He also talked about death threats that he has gotten, but that he went and has spoken and has stood up for what he believes in. Again, whether you agree with it or not, the particulars of what he's calling for, which is obviously more gun control and things like that. The fact that this young man, still in high school, can come out of such a tragic situation like that, reach across the country through media and create a movement is an astonishing thing. And as I said to him, and as I say to young people, you have more power, more reach, more connectivity, more network, more community as a young generation than any young generation ever has had in the history of the world. Think about that. Think of the power that confers and the responsibility that confers. Knowing what you know, knowing what you don't know, and mobilizing, that's amazing. And that's what young people do. Climate is another huge issue where young people are very active. And I talk to young people around that all the time. And I say to them, I play the grandma game with them. I ask who's got the oldest grandma in the room, and inevitably someone says, oh, my grandma's 98 years old. And I say, that's great. You got great DNA. If you live to your grandma's age, what year is that? And this is when I know I don't have math majors in the room because I can't do that very quickly, although it's strangely a little easier now because a lot of them were born in the year 2000. So 2000 plus 98 is 2098. Wow. And if you have kids in the year 2030, how long will they live? Wow, that's 2128. Imagine that. And in the year 2050, when we have nearly 11 billion people on the planet and we need twice as much energy, 60% more food, 40% more water, who's going to invent that? Who's going to come up with that great idea? Who's going to develop the next green revolution or the next energy revolution? And that's where you sort of see the light bulbs go on. And so I'm back to the resilience to understand that what we encounter is something we got to deal with and we work around it. The creativity to think, not just think outside the box, but as I like to say, burn the box, right? And that's where young people come in because they don't know bounds. To reach out to diverse ideas and people and places to bring those great ideas together, to capitalize on that, and to really understand that we're driven in these places by the community around us because that gives us both our identity and our purpose. I think that our leaders are able to inspire as well. They've done that in the past. I remember, as I said, I first started covering Ronald Reagan, and he spoke often about the city on the hill, the shining city on the hill, and he really believed in that. I remember covering him in Moscow when he went into the heart of what was then communism to talk about the benefits, the value, the importance of a free press, even if you didn't like what they said, to bring people the ideas and to hold those in power to account so that you could have a free society. I remember George Herbert Walker Bush calling for a kinder, gentler America. And while I was covering him, he had his 1,000 points of light. Every day they would trot out somebody who had contributed something to the community to highlight some heroic, brave, courageous, creative action that just a normal person was doing to move a community in the right direction. Bill Clinton, say what you want about Clinton, and we went through impeachment with him too, but he tapped in, at least initially, to this very sort of idealistic, I still believe in a place called Hope. He came from Hope, Arkansas. I still believe in a place called Hope. And, Boys Nation, there he was with JFK, the idea of youth. And this is the thing that makes me the saddest about our politics. and not just now, but it's been happening over time, this sort of loss of this sense of idealism. We got to figure out how to get back to that. And we're not going to get back to it in the ways of JFK. We're not bringing those days back. They will be reinvented in different ways. You know, Barack Obama talked about the arc of history. And again, agree or disagree with Barack Obama. I think that notion of the arc of history is right. That over time, we do progress. We take steps back. We bump into one another. We make a mess and we try to clean it up. It's kind of like raising kids. The stakes are very high right now, and we need to be very thoughtful about this. But I do see some real sense from a lot of people that a return to civility, some degree of normalcy, and certainly in our politics is possible. It's going to be really hard. It's going to be really hard because we've got this polarized public, and the research that we've done and the anecdotal stories we hear shows just how deeply divided we really are and how those go. But it can be addressed, and it's one of the reasons I call on my kin in the media to focus on not just the negative stories, but also the positive stories. There's this movement called solutions journalism that's trying to do it, but it needs to be brought into a lot of other places. I am going to leave you with a few thoughts, and then I'd love to open it up to your questions. So I've kind of laid out, right, my glass half empty optimism here. Lots of challenges, but a lot of reasons to think that we are capable of tremendous things, and we're going to do tremendous things. So I'm going to close the formal part of my talk here with Frank's 5 steps to staying informed while staying sane. Not an easy thing to do. You know, there's a lot going on in our world. I find that if I turn the TV on too much, it's just depressing. My wife has declared this a news-free zone after 9 o'clock at night, so presumably we can sleep. So, you know, and I talk to my pals in the media, and I still do this a lot. So I offer what I suffer from. So my 5 steps. 1, schedule your news. Don't be around the clock news consumer. That is not a recipe for sort of a healthy outlook on things. We are now, all of us, our own executive producers, our own editors in chief. How much we consume, when we consume it, from where, that's up to us. So my suggestion is consume for some time in the morning. It's a good way to start the day because it'll either get you angry enough or outraged enough or inspired enough to go launch, and then turn it off. If you want to come back to it in the evening, do it just before dinner, maybe just after dinner, but I think before dinner is better so that you can get that out of the way and then try to change the subject or chew on it over dinner. Something to talk about. Don't come back to it at night unless you're really resilient yourself, because it'll just get you worked up. And one of the things that we've seen with a lot of people is sort of compulsive consuming, and that is not necessarily a great thing. 2, diversify your portfolio. People ask me this all the time. Where should I get my news? You know, if I care about COVID, if I care about politics, if I'm into, you know, the economy, where do I go? My response is, you know, like a good investment portfolio, your news portfolio needs to be divested. Sure, the New York Times, the Washington Post are great. You know where they come from. The Wall Street Journal and the Atlantic are really powerful sources of information as well. The Atlantic goes deeper and has some really, really terrific stuff online. They started courts. NPR, Politico will zero in on politics. Axios, they call it smart brevity. If you aren't familiar with that, very short kind of design for this as we consume off of our handheld devices. BBC and the BBC World, you know, the Brits are pretty good at this kind of thing, and they will bring us the world. They can encapsulate it. The Guardian is a terrific place. So, you know, diversifying that news portfolio is great. 3, make sure your news sources pass the give 'em hell test. To be a, I think, responsible news organization, they really should, and if they take seriously holding power to account and all that, they got to give everybody hell, not just one place or one person. Nobody gets a pass, but you come at this job, whether it's holding those in power and politics accountable, the out of party power, out of power party accountable. You can't just say anything. Like, how are you going to pay for that? Or where's that going to come from? Those questions need to be asked. People in corporate America, in the church, you name it. Real journalism, responsible journalism, is an accountability exercise for all. And as I say, no one side team person gets picked on all the time, and nobody gets a pass. So they have to pass the give them hell test. All right, let's come to a different place now. How do we do this and stay sane? Embrace empathy and court context. We need to get a sense of perspective on the information in the world that's whirring around us. So this notion of embracing empathy, where other people come from. I gave a book talk. Obviously, I did this in New Haven, but I also gave a book talk that I'll never forget in Kansas, to the Kansas Medical Society. And these were all doctors. They were really smart, and they were also really conservative, most of them. And you know what they really objected to? Is that nobody bothered to come and spend time with them or in their communities. And so much of the national media and national politicians, for that matter, talked about them or referred to them, and this was the greatest insult of all, as flyover country. What do you mean flyover country? This isn't flyover country. This is my home. So this idea of understanding, empathizing, standing in someone else's shoes, whether they're across the country or across town, different from us, with different experience, different thought process, different outlook on life, is vital. We've got to do that. And courting context, how about thinking about a little history? Where has our experience been? Where have we come from? Where is someone else coming from? Attitude is fine, but outrage can be avoided, or at least looked at not through a cynic's lens, but through a skeptic's lens. Healthy skepticism is a good thing. No one would start a business without saying, well, what happens when the downturn comes? Or can I get the money? Or how's my, what's going to happen if I lose 10%? Am I going to be able to still stay in business? That's the responsible and healthy skepticism we all need. So embrace empathy and court context. And number 5, and I've talked about this, seek inspiration, right? Find the people who have tilted at windmills, made a difference, sacrificed something for the greater good, put others in front of themselves. They may be down the street. They may be characters in a book or a movie or a video. Maybe you write a book about them or you make a video about them. But that inspiration that we seek in ourselves, in our communities, in our news, in our politics, that's what gives us hope. That's what provides a storyline that shows that, no, we're not all going to live happily ever after. That's not how life works. It's not how things unfold. But we do make progress. And that's why we're all here. I told you at the outset I was a storyteller, and I talk to my students about storytelling. And I have a little bumper sticker for storytelling. It's not terribly original, but it pretty well captures it. Compelling characters overcoming obstacles to achieve a worthy outcome. Think about that. That's an unbelievable movie, right? Superman does that. Compelling character, Clark Kent falls to earth, kryptonite's a bad thing, obstacles, Lex Luthor, anybody else, but to achieve a worthy outcome. Business leaders do that. Scientists do that. Educators do that. People at Marrakesh do that. They are compelling characters. What makes them compelling? Okay, what makes someone compelling? As a storyteller, we look for that, to describe that, to help them be compelling. What are their obstacles? And what are they doing? They're trying to overcome them toward some great end. So I think that here's where I stand, and I'm going to turn it over to Garrett in just a moment, as a glass half empty optimist. I'm a realist. I'm a journalist. I write the story. I know where, we all know full well where the problems are, and there are many. And I've had some very dark days in these last few months looking at our politics and wondering, how do we get this back on track? But through the context, through the history, looking at what our communities do, how people can come together, in fact, how they do every day. It's just not the story that makes the most noise and gets the most headlines. In order to overcome these obstacles, to achieve the worthy outcome of strong communities, of better lives, of more prosperous businesses, of smarter people, of more opportunity. That's what we need to keep our focus on. And no amount of noise from the politicians or from the media or anywhere else should show us or convince us that we're not still capable of that, because we are. We invent every day. This is what I do with my Planet Forward project. I focus on the ideas and the innovations that move the planet forward. And those continue to happen. This is a time of testing. I believe, I hope, right, that we're going to come through it and we'll be better for it, because we've had a level of engagement and thought about who we are and what we are that we've not had before, forged by crisis perhaps and division, and we'll come through it. So with that, I would stop. I would thank you very much for everything that you all do. And Garrett, back to you. You've got days of great conference here, and onward.
Well, thank you, Frank, so much. It's great having you. I'll let everyone know. We'll do a couple questions here, and then Frank's going to join in our Zoom networking room, so folks can shift over there and talk to him for a couple minutes. Frank, just interested in the future of journalism. I know you touched on it, and some of these trends, they definitely started before Donald Trump became president, the polarization of the media. I do worry, though, that in the last year or so, it seems like everyone started, maybe not explicitly picking a side, but people believed that everyone was on a side, and there was a lot more of, I think, and kind of a little editorialism added in. How does the media move on from here? I heard you say you can't put the genie back in the bottle. I mean, is the media broken in that sense that it can't get back to that impartiality, or at least perception from the viewer that it's impartial?
Well, so we have to break it down, because it's a really great question, something that I think and worry about a lot, right? Because the CNN that I work for isn't the same CNN. It's still CNN, and when big news happens, it can still very much engage and does engage on the news thing, but there's no question that there's more opinion programming, certainly in prime time. Fox News has a very big divide between the news side, which is why they got in so much trouble with the president, because they actually said, oh, Arizona, sir, is going to Biden, and they did it early, and then they declared Biden president-elect. Their opinion side, their primetime programming is off the charts with opinion. MSNBC is all opinion. So there's the cable world, and that's filled with opinion. The talk radio world is also filled with opinion. I'm growing up in Connecticut. I remember I used to grow up listening to New York All News Radio, WCBS, All News, right? Probably some people know that. And All News grew up as I was growing up. And that kind of thing is very different. Who listens to terrestrial radio? NPR has huge numbers, but they're having more and more who listen to podcasts. Well, what do you do when you listen to a podcast? You pick the podcast you like. What happens to the newscast? When I first went into the news business, the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, required newscasts at the top of every hour on every radio station in America. That's been dropped. So getting 4 minutes of the news or 5 minutes of the news doesn't exist. Cable is different than news radio, and talk radio is different than news radio. And the Wall Street Journal is different than the New York Times, is different than Breitbart. It's all over the place. I think, Garrett, what's going to have to happen, and there's a big effort to try to, especially in schools and elsewhere, train young people in sort of media literacy. People are going to have to understand that they're going to have to shop around for their news diet in the same way they shop for their food diet. There's a lot of junk food out there. We eat a lot of it. A lot of it's bad for us, but it's cheaper, it's tastier, it's easier, it comes wrapped, we can take it out with us, and our news diet is going to be the same. There are marketing opportunities for news organizations, and some are trying this. There's a lot of money that's going into it. The biggest challenge right now is in local and regional journalism. So, the New York Times has 4 or 5 million digital-only subscribers. The Washington Post has close to 3 million. The LA Times is around 200,000. The Salt Lake Trib, I happen to know the person who runs the Salt Lake Trib, they're in the 20,000. What's the future of the Hartford Courant? All right, how are we going to tell the stories of Connecticut, of our communities? I've talked to governors and mayors, including some in Connecticut when I was up last, who say, I don't even have reporters come to my, city hall or cover the legislature anymore, So I think the burden of responsibility is shifting. It's shifting increasingly to news consumers. And one variety is that there's going to be an opportunity for people like with public broadcasting to invest in whether it's investigative journalism or other kinds of things. There's going to be community funding for this. I'm not optimistic about that, by the way. I think that's going to be really challenging to, come up with the revenue needed to really run news organizations. But it's going to be a very challenging time while this shakes out. Huffington Post is not what I would say should be your first stop if you're, and more people are getting information through their Twitter feeds and through their Facebook, their friends who say, hey, you should read this or take a look at that. And people are going to have to judge that skeptically too. So there's great journalism out there, Garrett, just to put a button on this, terrific journalism that's happening. And it's happening in a lot of different places. But it's not going to be the kind of, when I grew up, there were 3 networks and 2 newspapers, it's not going to be that ever again.
I'm going to turn to Karen Crane. She had a question. Karen, go ahead. You're unmuted. Let's see if we can get Karen to ask it. All right, well, while we're getting her up, Frank, another question on the polls. This is 2 cycles of presidential elections so far. Maybe it's just this candidate and the people that he attracts and that pollsters miss them. But what are your thoughts about polls going forward after now these 2 misses? And I know there's details about specific polls and national polling. But what are your thoughts on it?
Big problem. I don't want to throw anybody off a cliff, but maybe we should walk everybody to the cliff and have them stare down. There are, and I've been reading a lot about this and talking to some pollsters I know, there are serious problems in polling now. And these are big challenges ranging in every way from the proper weighting of polls, which they thought they did this time, and they still missed a lot of the Trump vote. They way overstated the gender gap and where this was going. And, some of the states that were going to be runaways by some of these polls turned out to be very close. The national number tracked closer, but it was not a 10-point spread. Problems in phone. So how many people have landlines? How many people have cell phones? Problems in people refusing polls because they're getting pounded by robocalls and they don't have them. Polls, these calls can now be screened out, so some of them never even ring in to a lot of different people. So there's one part of the problem is in the polling industry, and they're scratching their heads a lot on this, and it's a real issue. The other problem is in the media and the political worlds and how they take polls, and they hang their hats on these things. And polls should be a tool, never a crutch. They become a crutch. They become stories in their own right. Let's come to Connecticut for a minute. Quinnipiac put itself on the map with their poll. And their poll is a highly respected poll. But it too got some things wrong or not as right as they should have been. And it points there are a lot of organizations and funders, donors, who want to put their name on a poll. And there's also been a polling explosion, proliferation of these things. So there are so many of them, and in some ways that's good. And Real Clear Politics did their poll of polls, and they thought by averaging together the polls, you'd come up to better. And even that didn't work because, it's woodshed time in the polling industry, and it's woodshed time in the media industry because you got to stop hanging on these things. And let me tell you what, politicians fundraise around this stuff. I mean, this isn't inconsequential. This is a big deal. So there's going to be a lot of rethinking and a lot of deep research and head scratching. I haven't seen anybody convincingly answer the question yet. Everybody's still asking it.
Well, Frank, thank you so much for joining us this morning. We really do appreciate it. And I want to let everyone know Frank's going to jump over to our Zoom networking lounge, so you can follow him over there. Shantae just put it in the chat, the link there, so you can see the Zoom lounge link. You click on that. Frank will be over there. He'll be around for about 10 minutes and then he's got to head out, but a great opportunity to ask a few more questions if you'd like to talk to Frank. And Frank, we really do appreciate you giving us so much time this morning, and thanks to Marrakesh as well.
Well, Garrett, I just want to thank you and thank the Chamber. Like I said, I wish I could be with you in Connecticut right about now. It really beats Washington in just about every way that I can think of, because this is a strange time to be here. But good luck to you and your leadership of the Chamber and all that you're doing in your community. It's great, and I look forward to and very much hope I can. I'll go into the lounge now, but I very much hope I can be with you all again. And again, thanks to Marrakesh and all they're doing and all the support the community provides for Marrakesh. It's just fabulous and makes such a difference.
Thanks, Frank. We appreciate it.
Okay.
All right, I'll let everyone know you can follow Frank again into the Zoom room if you want to, but our next panel is going to start at 10 a.m. It's called Positive Pivots and Best Practices in the Pandemic. And we have Dale Krupp, Ramon Peralta, and Lauren Tagliatella, who will bring up in just a few minutes. So we'll bring them up at 10 a.m. to get started with the program. Again, the Zoom networking room lounge is open, and also feel free to check out our exhibitors. Take some time to go through Whova. That's the platform that we're using for the conference this morning. It's a great way to connect virtually if we can't be in person. So much of what we do at the Big Connect is about being in person, those connections that you're able to make with each other. So I really encourage everyone to take some time, walk through the Whova platform and learn about how you can use those connection pieces. Again, we do have this networking lounge that we'll keep open all morning and throughout the day, and that'll be an opportunity. If you even want to connect with someone that you meet online through the Whova app, feel free to jump over to the networking lounge. It will be open, and in many cases, our speakers, just like Frank is right now, will be shifting over there, and you'll be able to join and talk with him. It's a meeting format as opposed to the webinar, so your cameras will be able to be on and have a little bit more in-person conversation. And I'm excited about the program we have coming up for the rest of the day today. So we have positive pivots and best practices in the pandemic. That'll come up in just a few moments. Then access to capital and other support for your business presented by KeyBank. Lori Santos, a professor at Yale University, the science of well-being, how to be happy. We'll have that at noon, and then digital marketing with Hearst Connecticut Media Group. And we'll round out the day with optimism and opportunity, the new roadmap to success. So a lot more to come here at the Big Connect, day one. And remember, we're doing 4 days of this virtual programming for you. It should be a great time as we continue. We please thank you for attending all of our speakers, and then also please use this time to make those connections. We're going to play a few announcements, and then we will get started with positive pivots at 10 a.m. So just in a few moments. And like I said, we'll play a few announcements here, and then we will get going with our positive pivots program at 10 a.m. So it's in just a few moments.
Protect the environment and help your local economy by using certified and environmentally validated biodiesel from American Green Fuels. Biodiesel is a renewable energy source made from recycled waste products, such as used cooking oil, which is converted into biodiesel at American Green Fuels and then blended into your heating oil. Biodiesel burns cleaner even in your current oil burner, so ask your oil retailer for biodiesel produced by American Green Fuels. You are what you heat.
At AMS Practice Management, we are recruiters committed to your success. We're not just a vendor, we're your partner. Your team is foundational to your success, and we understand that finding the right candidate is about more than keywords on a resume, which is why we go beyond job boards and algorithms. It's about cultural fit, personality, experience, and so much more. You need someone who understands the vision. We're committed to providing you excellent customer service through clear communication and value-added information throughout the whole recruiting process. What challenging position can we help you fill?
So you're a small business, or a big one. You were thriving. But then, time to think, plan, pivot. How do you bounce back? You don't. You bounce forward with serious and reliable internet, powered by the largest gig speed network in America. But is it secure? Sure, it's secure. And even if the power goes down, Your connection doesn't.
So how do I do this?
You don't do this. We do this together. Bounce forward with Comcast Business.
The door to a car you've been saving for. The door to a personal loan that feels genuinely personal. The door to a bedroom for each of your teenagers. The door to a new employee who's also your neighbor. And the door to a happy and full life for you and everyone you know. This year, KeyBank has already opened over 170,000 doors, helping people get from where they were to where they wanted to be. KeyBank opens doors.
We believe in the power of people to do what it takes, to stand strong, to meet challenges head on. At Connecticut, we help our members do just that. We're here when they need an ally, clearing paths so they can see their doctors or get their medicine safely at home. And since Connecticut is our home too, we see the power in its people every day. Connecticut, powered by people for a healthier you.